So today our class is on indicators of health. So you all completed your dimensions, determinants of health. So today we are moving on indicators of health. So what are indicators? Indicators are those which are needed for monitoring and evaluating the healthcare services and various programs which are running in the country so that health status of the country can be assessed. Needs of medical care, how are they doing, how the evaluation of healthcare delivery system, distribution of the resources, and measuring the healthcare status of the community. These are all done through indicators of health. So according to WHO, we are having many indicators. So various indicators which are we are going to study here are mortality indicators, morbidity indicators, disability rates, nutritional status, health status, healthcare delivery, utilization rates, indicators of social and mental health, environmental indicators, socioeconomic indicators, health policy indicators, indicators of quality of life, and there are various other indicators as well. So we have this diagram also where we have just shown how the health status of the family or community or any individual is affected by the various indicators. So something like public policy and research is there. Plus we are having various factors affecting. So socio-economic environment, lifestyle, behavioral risk factors, then genetic environment, health status, physical environment, ecology of the environment, and there are various other factors which we have just studied up. There are many factors which affect the health status of the community. So we are going to study the first indicator of health, that is the mortality indicator, right? So mortality indicators are statistical measures that reflect death rate within a population. Okay, so mortality means death rate. Wherever you will listen the word mortality, it means you are measuring something related to death. So this indicator, what does it offer? It gives us insights on health status, the burden, disease burden, and what is the effectiveness of our health system. So these indicators are widely used in epidemiology. So why they are used in epidemiology? Because they are readily available, they can be comparable, and they are sensitive to change. So mortality data is often the starting point for the public health analysis. So in many countries, death registration system is well established. Governments routinely publish the annual mortality statistics. So these data sets form the primary source of information for epidemiologists so that they can track the trends and they can identify where are the health issues. So highly sensitive and context specific indicators are IMR and MMR, infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate. So infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate, these both are concerned with the pregnant ladies, and after that the delivery of the child, the delivery of the baby, and first 6 months when the child is known as the infant. So these are the most sensitive indicators of overall health and reflects the socio-economic development of the community. When we talk of MMR, it specifically reflects quality of obstetric care and what is the access to reproductive health services in the community. So it reflects both. So changes in mortality rate can be over time, and they indicate the shift in disease pattern, they indicate the health interventions, and they also indicate how is the community well-being going on. So among the mortality rates, we have several mortality rates, and some of the common mortality rates are CDR, that is crude death rate, that is total deaths per 1000 population in a given year. Then is IMR, infant mortality rate, that is deaths of infants under 1 year per 1000 live births. Child mortality, deaths of children aged 1 to 4 years per 1000 children in that age group. Under 5, mortality rate, it combines the deaths at of children under age 5 per 1000 live births. Then we talk of MMR, it is death due to pregnancy or childbirth per 1 lakh live births. Disease specific mortality, it is deaths attributed to particular disease. Now disease specific mortality, in some books you can find tuberculosis specific mortality or cancer specific mortality. So it is disease specific mortality only. So then we'll see the formula and then we'll put the indicator of that disease and then we'll put the formula and we'll get the rate. Next is case fatality rate, CFR, proportion of deaths among diagnosed cases of a specific disease. Then proportional mortality, it is percentage of total deaths due to specific cause. Expectation of life, that is average number of years a person is expected to live from birth. Survival rate, it is proportion of individuals surviving a disease over a defined time period. So here I would like to tell you that what is expectation of life. Like in previous years, some 20 or 30 years back, the expectation of life in our country was 60 or 65, right? But now it has moved on to 80 to 85. Like what we are doing, that a person should live up to 85 years of age if everything goes on well. Right. Right. So mortality indicators are essential tools for health monitoring, policy formulation, and resource allocation. And their reliability and sensitivity make them central to both national health reporting and global comparisons. Okay. So next we have morbidity indicators. So morbidity indicators refers to any departure from state of physiological well-being, whether it's subjective or objective. Subjective or objective means whether you are feeling unwell or you have been diagnosed with any of the illness. So it encompasses conditions described as sickness, illness, disability, or functional impairment. So according to WHO expert committee on health statistics, morbidity can be quantified using 3 units. What are these 3 units? Number 1 is sick individuals. Then is illness episodes. Then is duration of illness. So morbidity indicators are used to assess 3 key dimensions. What are these 3 key dimensions? These are frequency, duration, and severity. So what do you mean by frequency? So frequency means how often the illness is occurring in a community. Duration, how long the illness is lasting. Then is severity, means how serious or disabling the illness is being for the particular person. So for determining the community health, the following morbidity rates are used. So what are these morbidity rates? These are incidence and prevalence, notification rates, attendance rates at OPD and healthcare centers, admission, readmission and discharge rates, duration of stay in a hospital, spells of sickness or absence from work or school. So morbidity indicators in a nutshell, we can say that these are essential for assessing disease burden, identifying the priority health issues in the community, providing clinical relevant data for research and planning, supporting etiological investigations and preventive strategies, Etiological investigations means etiology. Etiology means causes and risk factors. Monitoring the effectiveness of health interventions over time and understanding the distribution of both communicable and non-communicable disease in a population. So communicable disease, as we all know, that is the disease which spread from one person to another, and non-communicable disease which do not transfer or which do not transmit any kind of pathogen, but it is a lifestyle major disease. So together, morbidity indicators offer a comprehensive picture of community health, complementing mortality data and guiding the public health action. So it is very important for framing public health policies. So here we have key measures of morbidity. So we have written it like incidence rate. What is its definition? Like number of new cases in a defined population over a specific period of time. And what is its purpose? It identifies the risk and helps to track the outbreaks. Prevalence rate, it is total number of existing cases, new plus old, at a point or over a period of time. So it indicates overall disease burden in the population. Notification rate at which notifiable diseases are reported to healthcare authorities. And it reflects surveillance system efficiency and disease awareness. So this rate is also reflects means it's helpful to the healthcare authorities to identify if there is any outbreak or there is any epidemic or pandemic in that particular area. Healthcare utilization rate, it includes OPD attendance, hospital admissions, readmissions, discharge, and average hospital stay. So it reflects access to care, service demand, and disease severity. Disability and absenteeism rate. So disability and absenteeism rates can be measured in a school, in a factory, or the offices in that particular area. And if a person is absent from work or school, means like children are absent, more absenteeism is there. So the healthcare authorities are given the information, and then it is a point of survey that what is happening in that particular area or the population. So it assesses the functional impact and economic burden. Then is CFR again, case fatality rate. This is proportion of individuals with the disease who die from it. So it indicates disease severity. Meaning, suppose the dengue is there. The dengue in last previous years, dengue was there, from which people were even dying. Right. So COVID-19 went when the major number of people were dying. So it indicates what is the severity of the disease, and it is often used for morbidity analysis despite being a mortality metric. Then we come to disability rates. Now, disability related morbidity indicators, it reflects the frequency and impact of conditions that limit an individual's ability to perform daily activities or participate fully in the society. So these limitations may rise from hereditary, congenital, acquired, or even the environmental factors, and it can affect physical, sensory, cognitive, and social functioning. So we all know the words physical means when a person is not able to move by his physical body, any physical disease is there, or sensory when his sense organs are not properly working. Cognitive is particularly the mind related issues when he is not able to think what he has to do. And social functioning is again concerned with the mental illness only, but in here social functioning, the person is not socializing in the community. So such indicators are essential for understanding the burden of non-fatal health conditions. Though these are non-fatal means the person is not having any fear of death, means it is not fatal, the condition is not fatal, but it is more than the condition that arises from a fetal condition, right? Because he is a living person and the living person is not behaving properly in the community. So we have to plan the rehabilitation services and we have to promote the health policies so that these disability rates may not uh, rise. So what are the common disability related morbidity indicators? So number one, here we have taken as prevalence of blindness, where there is either complete or partial loss of vision. There is deafness and dumbness, where hearing impairment and speech disability is there. Then paralysis, where the individual is having motor impairment due to any neurological or muscular cause. Then is poliomyelitis cases, when there is incidence or prevalence of polio-related paralysis. Then mental and social disability, it includes cognitive impairments, developmental disorders, and socially limiting conditions. General sickness and functional limitation. So it includes chronic fatigue, musculoskeletal disorders, or other conditions causing reduced activity. So disability indicators complement traditional morbidity measures. How? By highlighting the functional consequences of disease. So they are vital for building equitable health system that serve all the segments of the population. So here we can say that it's not only the rural areas, there can be the urban areas also. We have the cognitive impairment more in urban areas than in rural areas. The mental illness that is going up is more in urban areas than in rural areas. So equitable health system, what we are telling is that it is not so that only the rural areas are having the deficiency of healthcare systems. Yes, it is very worst there, but urban areas are again more means highlighting the healthcare system. So there should be the equitable healthcare system. The healthcare policy makers should focus on both urban and rural areas equally. And plus all segments of the population, whether they are rich or poor, it applies to both equally. So these indicators help us to assess the burden of non-communicable and chronic conditions, identifying vulnerable population needing assistive services, then support disability inclusive health planning, monitor progress towards rehabilitation and social integration goals, inform policy for education, employment, and accessibility. So here it would be worth saying that non-communicable diseases, chronic conditions, and vulnerable population, one of the major group of people which or a major group of population that lies in this is obese people. So obese people are obese, of course. They have the risk of diabetes. They are on risk of cardiovascular diseases. Then they are on risk of various musculoskeletal disorders also. So these are some of the chronic conditions where now we are very means these are seeking attention now among the population. Then we come to nutritional status indicators. So what are the nutritional status indicators? Means nutrition means we have to have the balance between what is the intake of nutrient and what is the requirement of the body for growth, maintenance, and function. So poor nutritional status can lead to growth retardation, increased susceptibility to disease, delayed cognitive development, especially in children. So increased susceptibility to disease also often highlights the immunity part of the individual. So if the immunity is not strong, so it means that we are susceptible to disease, and again it comes to nutritional status of that particular person. So again this nutritional status which was often which was previously being linked with the rural areas, that rural areas are very means prone to nutritional deficiency, and poor people are prone to nutritional deficiency. So now it is not so, because in urban areas where the junk food consumption has rise, the immunity has gone down. And when the immunity has gone down, we are more susceptible to diseases. So, in epidemiology and public health, several key indicators are used to assess nutritional status across different age groups. So, these indicators are especially valuable for monitoring the child health, evaluating the program effectiveness, and guiding nutritional interventions. So, what core nutritional indicators are we are going to study here are: number one is anthropometric measurements in preschool children. So it is going on in everywhere, means in every school. They are noting down the weight, height, and middle arm circumference. They are detecting the undernutrition, stunting, and wasting part of the children. Then it is particularly useful for rapid screening of acute malnutrition, and these measurements are compared against WHO growth standards to classify the nutritional status. So preschool children are those which are not going to school like beforehand. They are all doing the anthropometric measurements. So preschool children, when they go for the vaccination drive, or they go for the vaccination, there they take down or count down all these things like height, weight, and middle arm circumference. When we come to school entry, schools also note down the height, weight of the children. Not MUAC, middle arm, upper arm circumference is not noted, but weight and height is noted in major of the schools. So it reflects the nutritional status. It helps to identify the chronic undernutrition and growth delays, and it can be linked to school readiness and learning potential. So here I would like to just like to make you focus on the policies, national health programs related to the nutrition, which our government has just they have launched the programs like Anganwadi mein and the major schools mein there is food given to the people. So we have various national health programs related to that. The next indicator is prevalence of low birth weight. Low birth weight means if the child born is less than 2.5 kg, it's known as low birth weight, and it indicates maternal nutrition status also, prenatal care quality, and intrauterine growth. So maternal means mother ka nutrition status, prenatal means the time period of 9 months, the pregnancy time, that is known as the prenatal care quality, and the intrauterine growth means if anyhow the mother is having good nutrition, but the nutrition is not going directly to the uterus and to the baby, so that is the measurement indicator, that is intrauterine growth. So high LBW prevalence is associated with infant mortality, developmental delays, and long-term health risks. So these are very sensitive, reliable, and actionable, so that we can have some targeted interventions. So like supplementary feeding or maternal care programs are there. So they are routinely used in national health surveys, growth monitoring programs, school health screenings, and maternal and child health initiatives. So this is a window for health, development, and well-being of children and mothers particularly. Then we come to biochemical indicators. So biochemical and functional indicators, what do? They provide insight into internal physiological processes, nutrient reserves, and clinical consequences of malnutrition and nutrient balance. So now we are talking of nutritional status. Okay? Nutritional status indicators, that is a very very big window where we are trying to resolve the problem of malnutrition. We are assessing that if there is malnutrition prevailing in the society among the children or among the population. So now it's deeper into the nutritional status. Now we are coming specifically that why the malnutrition is there, why the nutrient imbalances is there. So for these, for the analysis of this part, like we can say that there is low nutritional status in particular population or in particular family, in genetically or hereditary it is coming out. So we'll go for the analysis of these indicators. So number one in this is biochemical and next one is the functional indicator. So among biochemical indicators, we have lab tests, various lab tests, so that we can measure the nutrient level, metabolic markers, and the protein status of in the body of mother particularly. So it reflects body's internal nutrient balance and is often used in clinical and research settings. So various lab tests are albumin, transferrin, pre-albumin, retinol binding protein, cholesterol, and CRP. So these have their different significance. What are we are finding out? So along with the clinical findings, the inflammation and infection part is also seen or analyzed for the mother, so that the nutritional status can be identified. Among functional indicators, we are assessing the physiological and clinical consequences of poor nutrition. So here you will see that we are going to analyze whether the child or the infant or the baby would have cognitive, any kind of cognitive impairment, any kind of mental illness, or anemic, or if there is any pressure ulcers to the mother. Pressure ulcer is not to the baby, it is to the mother. So these are very important in elderly patients, in elderly population, in mothers particularly. Sometimes they also indicate, these are indicators for the hospitalized patients, particularly the pressure ulcers wala part, and the individuals with chronic illness, where the nutritional status directly affects the recovery and quality of life. So overall we can say the functional indicators are being assessed, are being evaluated for hospitalized and more vulnerable group. So elderly people means the old age people. Hospitalized people means their average stay in the hospital is very long, and chronic illness means the people who are ill for a very long time, so they are on beds and having the pressure ulcer or pressure sores on their body. So these are the indicators which help which you can say which help to analyze the nutritional status of the population and the people. Next, we come to social and mental health indicator. So social and mental health indicators reflect psychosocial well-being of individuals and community. So psychosocial well-being means we are taking care of emotional, behavioral, and societal dimensions of health. So they are very essential for understanding burden of mental disorder, social dysfunction, and community level stressors that impact overall health outcome. So in modern epidemiology, these indicators are increasingly recognized as core components of health surveillance, especially in urbanizing and industrializing societies where social stressors are amplified. So, what indicators are we are going to cover in this are substance abuse, child neglect, violence against women, then juvenile delinquency, suicidal rates, homicide rates, and traffic accidents. So these are the major indicators which help us to analyze the problems in the society. So what are the contributing factors to that? So urbanization, industrialization, rapid growth of urban slums, overcrowding, these all um, means assist these factors. Unemployment, poverty, mental distress, cultural and social norms where mental illness can be there, gender roles, means there is stigma to these things, like stigma around mental illness. There are gender roles, then child discipline can be masked. So these perpetuate the harmful behavior of the people. Then there is weak social support system. Weak social support system means there is lack of access to counseling, rehabilitation, and community engagement programs, where means the vulnerable population are more uh, prone to all these. So social and mental health indicators are vital for designing mental health services and outreach programs, monitoring psychosocial trends in vulnerable population, evaluating the impact of social policies and urban planning, and integrating the mental health into primary care and public health frameworks. So these indicators underscore the need of holistic approach to health. Holistic approach, we have studied uh, in the first instance of the starting the epidemiology classes, where we have talked of concept of health. So holistic approaches covering whole physical, mental, psychosocial, and everything, right? So emotional well-being, safety, social stability, everything is integral to physical health. They support the physical health of the person. So next we come to healthcare delivery indicators. So healthcare delivery indicators particularly assess the availability, accessibility, and distribution of healthcare services within the community. These indicators reflect capacity of health system to meet the population needs, and they are very crucial for planning, monitoring, improving the service delivery at all levels, from PHC to the tertiary care hospitals. So in India, healthcare delivery is structured across multiple tiers like PHC is there, CHC, then subcenters, then district and referral hospitals. Then we come to private specialty, multi-speciality hospitals. So these institutions collectively form the backbone of the public health infrastructure. So key healthcare delivery indicators which we are going to cover in this are doctor population ratio, doctor nurse ratio, population bed ratio, population per health or subcenter, population per traditional birth attendant. So this will means doctor population ratio means number of doctors per 1000 or 1 lakh population. So it reflects adequacy of the medical personnel. So WHO recommends 1 doctor per 1000 people. Ratio of physicians to nursing staff is doctor nurse ratio, which indicates balance in the clinical workforce. Population bed ratio means number of people being served per hospital bed. So it means we are assessing the inpatient capacity of particularly hospitals. So high ratio means overcrowding or under resourcing. Number of people served by each PHC or by each subcenter means population per subcenter, and it measures the accessibility of primary care services used in rural health planning. Then we come to population per traditional birth attendant. Traditional birth attendant means the ANMs in the rural areas and the gynae doctor in the urban areas. So number of people being served by each trained birth attendant, very important in maternal and child health programs, especially in the underserved areas. So what does these indicators help? These indicators help us to identify the service gaps in underserved region, allocate the resources efficiently, monitor the progress towards universal health coverage, evaluate equity in health service distribution, and support policy decisions on health, workforce expansion, and facility upgrades. So in rural and tribal areas, population per subcenter and TBA coverage are critical for maternal and child health outcomes. In urban settings, doctor to population and bed ratios are enough, and they guide the hospital planning and emergency preparedness. While doctor nurse ratio influence the quality of care, patient safety, and the staff workload. So when we talk of rural and tribal areas, the doctor nurse ratio does not hold any significance there. When we talk of health care delivery system indicators, so the major significance is that they are benchmarks for system performance. It helps the government and health planners to ensure that services are adequate, equitable, and responsive to the population needs. The next one is health system performance indicators. Earlier, we have seen that utilization rates was uh, there in the indicator list. So it is this only, that health system performance indicators are there. So what does these measure? These measure efficiency, effectiveness, quality, and responsiveness of health services. So, unlike the structural indicators, performance indicators focus on how well the system delivers the care, how well it meets the population needs, and how well we are able to achieve the health outcome. So, these are essential for monitoring purpose, evaluation purpose, and identifying the gaps in the healthcare delivery, while very important for guiding the policy and resource allocation. So the key health system performance indicators are service utilization rate, referral compliance rate, treatment success rate, immunization coverage, maternal and child health service coverage, patient satisfaction index, waiting time for services, health worker productivity, bed occupancy rate, and emergency response rate. So if we see to the utilization rate, what are the utilization rates? Mean frequency of health services used per capita. Means how well a particular OPD is going on. Means how much OPD patients are coming and visiting a particular hospital in a year. So if the OPD, the patients coming to the OPD are good enough, a very good number, so it means that the utilization rate of that particular community is good. So it is reflecting the access and demand and trust in the healthcare system. So जिसकी OPD में ज़्यादा patients आएंगे, it means either that hospital is doing very well, it is giving very good services to the patients, plus it also indicates the population trusts that hospital. And here we are just neglecting the part that the population is ill, more ill. Okay, so that part we are neglecting here. Just utilization, we are just assessing the utilization rate. Then we come to referral compliance rate. It means the percentage of patients who follow through the recommended referrals. So we are just noting down of this. Now this is the indicator for the hospitals, how well they are doing. So if we are referring to a particular hospital, it means the referred hospital is doing very well, or they are having the specialized people or specialized doctors with them. So it's means they are doing good with the patient care services. And also it indicates the coordination between primary and higher level care. If we talk this about the PHC or CHC referring the patients to the higher uh, hospitals or higher centers, so it means the perfect coordination between them. Plus it also indicates the inability of that PHC or CHC, means how are they not doing well with the patient. So that is also the analysis point, that how or which patients are they referring, right? Then we come to treatment success rate. Treatment success rate means how many patients are cured or how many patients are improved after the treatment. So particularly when we talk of tuberculosis, so there is one a national health program, that's National Tuberculosis Eradication Program. So in that program, it is essentially means written there, and everybody is means they are told that they have to take the follow up of the tuberculosis patients. So if a patient is identified by suffering through tuberculosis, it is not so key he has come to the PHC or CHC or any hospital identified as a tuberculosis patient. They will give the medicine and the patient will go. No, it is the responsibility of that PHC, CSC or the hospital to take the follow up of what? That is the patient taking medicines on time? Because we know very well it, if one dose or you can say the dose for 1 or 2 days or 3 days is missed, the tuberculosis patient goes back to the initial stage. So the consistency in the medicine is very very important, particularly if we talk of tuberculosis. So follow up has to be taken, it is mandatory, and it is very well given instructions to the healthcare centers and all, that they have to take the follow up. And how will they take follow up? Like how will they get to know that the patient is taking the medicines regularly or not? Now that is the 6 months dots therapy, like dots care is there, so their medicines are just counted, you know. They give the medicine for 1 month, then they come tell the patient to come for follow up, see how many medicines are left, then from that they come to know that the patient is taking medicine properly or not. So this is the uh, thing when it is told that the person is cured or improved. So this is the case or example you can say for this indicator. Then is the immunization coverage, the percentage of target population receiving vaccines, maternal and child health services coverage, that is utilization of antenatal care and institutional delivery plus postnatal care. So particularly if we talk of rural areas, for nowadays also, we just tell them that institutional deliveries, that go for institutional deliveries, that delivery should not be done at home or under any untrained person, dyes and all, but institutional deliveries should be focused on. So there, yes, today also it's a challenge, but the rural areas are prone to this also. So next is patient satisfaction index. This is survey based measure of patient experience and perceived quality. So this is particularly we are if we say it is a index for the tertiary care hospitals where we have patient satisfaction forms and surveys being done. Then waiting time for services, waiting time in the OPD, waiting time in the ICU, or in an emergency, there is waiting time for beds. Or if we say here particularly, it is average time between arrival and the consultation or the treatment being given to the patient. Then we come to health worker productivity. So number of patients seen or how many procedures have been performed per provider, means when we are talking of any doctor, then how many patients are is he able to see in the OPD, or how many procedures he is performing per day. So that goes to health worker productivity. Then is the bed occupancy rate. Bed occupancy rate means how many hospital beds are occupied over a period of time. Then emergency response time means time taken to respond to urgent health needs, means how ambulance arrival time can be taken as an example here. So these indicators help, and it marks the benchmark for the system performance across the regions and facilities. They identify the bottleneck in the service delivery, and they monitor equity and quality in healthcare access. So they are often used in national health dashboards, hospital performance audits, and program evaluations when we talk of NRHM, NHM, and Ayushman Bharat. So National Rural Health Mission is NRHM, and National Health Mission is NHM. So these indicators shift the focus from what is available to how well it is working. And therefore, they are essential for building accountable, patient centered, and outcome driven health systems. So, next we have health policy indicator. So, health policy indicators measure the formulation, implementation, utilization, and impact of health related policies within a population. So, we are talking of national health programs particularly. So these indicators reflect how effectively these services are designed to address specific age group, disease burden, vulnerable population, and priority health issues. So they also assess communities' awareness, communities' access and engagement with these policies. So health policies includes immunization schedule, MCH programs, geriatric care, mental health initiatives, NCD control, and health insurance and financial protective schemes. So indicators, when we talk of indicators, we have policy coverage indicator, policy utilization rate, awareness level of health policies, budget allocation to health policies, implementation fidelity, monitoring and evaluation, and equity in policy assess. So when we talk of policy coverage means what proportion of target population is being covered by a specific health policy. Utilization rate means how many individuals are eligible who are actually using the services. Awareness means are the is the population aware of existing health schemes. Budget allocation means the share of national and state health budget dedicated to specific programs. Then implementation, how the policy is being delivered across the regions. Monitoring evaluation means audit and reviews impact the assessment of the health policies. So these indicators help to assess the effectiveness of health governments, identify the gap between policy designing and implementation, guiding the resource allocation and program scaling, support evidence based policy making, and monitor progress towards national and global health goals. So, in India, various health policy indicators are used to evaluate schemes like Janani Suraksha Yojana, National Mental Health Program, Rashtriya Bal Swasthya Karyakram, Ayushman Bharat. So, globally, we are covering or we are aligned with SDG goals. SDG is Sustainable Development Goals. So we have 17 indicators, or you can say the 17 goals are there, and among that we have several goals targeting on particular things. So 3.8 means goal third ka eighth indicator is being for this universal health coverage. So next we have indicators of quality of life. So this is the last one. So quality of life refers to an individual's overall well-being, encompassing physical health, mental stability, social relationships, economic security, and environmental safety. So in public health, it indicates or these indicators are used to assess how well the people live, not just how long they live, how well the people are living. So it is closely tied to socio-economic status. Socio-economic status means socio-economic indicators. It means individuals who are educated, employed, and having stable income resources, or the sources they have better health, greater autonomy, and improved life satisfaction. So what are these indicators? Indicators are in education level, employment status, income, housing conditions, access to healthcare services, nutrition and food security, social inclusion and social safety, environmental quality, and mental and emotional well-being. So in a nutshell, we see that indicators of quality of life are like literacy rate, job security, quality of living that we have, affordability of healthcare services, are can we afford them. So these are all the indicators for quality of life. So under this, we come to physical quality of life index. When we talk of physical quality of life index, means we are talking of something like physical health, right? So that is measuring the basic well-being of the population. Basic well-being means how the physical health of the particular population is. Means IMR should not go up. Life expectancy should not be like at the age of 1 the child is means it is a danger to his survival. And literacy rate, so literacy rate, the access to education and knowledge. So each component, if scaled from 0 to 100, the average of 3 will be the PQLI score of that particular person. So higher score indicates the better quality of life. So here we come to an end to indicators of health.